by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, everyone. Welcome to another Shabbat night talk. Blessed be the name of our great King, Yehovah Eloheinu. Thank you, the Most High God, for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, the ability to call upon His name in truth and in righteousness. And we ask that the Most High God be with all of you that are out there today, tonight, and that the Most High continue to bless you, keep you, and protect you, and all of your endeavors, that Yehovah continue to be with us and guide our steps. I'd like to thank the Most High God for my life, the life of my family, the life of all those that I love, and also thanking the Most High God for the life of all of you that are out there listening tonight. I know I was out of town last week, so I didn't get a chance to post up, and where I was at, I didn't get a chance to be able to bring forth the word, because I didn't have a computer, first of all, and I didn't have my personal computer, and the internet reception was kind of bad, so I couldn't transmit. And I apologize to everyone out there on internet land that try to tune in on Shabbat during the day, and it didn't work out because of the situations and everything that was happening. So I thank the Most High God for this day, and hopefully tomorrow, Yah willing, we'll be on with services. Everybody enjoying the day, the service, and the Most High God being with us all. Thank you, the Most High God. I was speaking to one of my brothers. He's located now in Syracuse, New York. Brother Yosef Ben Simeon, strong brother. Hoping and praying that the Most High God continue to be with him and his family and all his endeavors, that the Most High continue to protect him and guide him. And thanking the Most High God for all of us that are on this forum tonight. And I pray that Yehovah continue to, guide us and protect us and keep us. Hope that everybody had a beautiful Shabbat meal. Hope that everybody continues to be strong in this way of life. As I'm going to go through a few things tonight. I'm going to basically read certain things to you. The excerpts of a book and a paper that I've had for quite a long time, that gives us the understanding of a lot of the things that are going on. As you see today, it was Xmas Day. It was Xmas Day, and everywhere you went, the last few weeks, last couple of days, Merry Christmas to you all, and everybody's wishing you a Merry Christmas, and you can't escape it, because it's the traditions of this place. It's also what's been ingrained in us, throughout our lives. Even if you was born in this way of life, you listen to so many Christmas songs that you know the lyrics, and you just can't help it, because it's the customs of the people, and it being the customs of the people, you're constantly bombarded with you're constantly bombarded with the concept of Christmas and Xmas and the birth of Jesus Christ, per se. What they say is the birth of Jesus Christ, but in reality, and Christianity teaches this, and it brings this forth, but in reality, nowhere in the New Testament does it give you a birth of Jesus. or a date of a birth of Jesus. You can't find it. So how did that come about, and where did that tradition come from is the question that you got to ask yourself. See, the problem with a lot of people is that they follow things blindly. Christianity can't give you a date to where he was born. What happened is throughout history, and I will go through, and through ancient times and paganistic celebrations and things that people got into, is how the birth of Christ became associated with a period in time when ancient societies used to celebrate the winter solstice, which was the time in the year where sunlight was the shortest in the earth, or those places um, where you actually have a winter season, and then the days began to get longer from that period of time on, because it's a whole thing, the period of time when the sunlight is shortest in that part of the hemisphere, and then the sun begins to be longer, and we understand this to be the winter solstice, just like you have the summer solstice, which comes in June, which is um, basically the longest day of the year, and you have the longest sunlight, um, or the longest sun, not longest day, because all days have 24 hours. But what I meant to say is that the day that has the longest amount of sunlight in the year. All right, so let me just clarify that before they start talking about me and say Uzal said that the longest day, and every day has a 24-hour period. So that's that's clear. So in Christianity, they teach us that December 25th is the birth of Christ, and from our way of living and our way of thinking, we didn't even you know you have to prove to me that he even existed. But for the sake of you know argument, let's say he did exist. Uh, Nowhere in the New Testament does it speak about the date of his birth. So where do Christians get this concept from? We're going to explain it, and we're going to see and get into it, how they adopted these different concepts of Christianity, um, of these different concepts of his birth and when he was born, and where they came about these ideas, and from where did they develop these ideas, so that we can have a clearer understanding of where they get this stuff from. So first, let's go to the book of Luke, chapter 2, starting from verse 7. And the only reason I'm doing this is so that, and we're not Messianic Israelites, but only reason why I'm doing this is to prove a point. Now give me a second here, as I'm not at that page yet. Luke chapter 2, starting from verse 7 and 8. And it reads on this wise. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in bands of cloth, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for him in the inn. So this is the whole Jesus story. And today, when we see all the different displays of Jesus, we see him in the manger with his mother and his father kneeling next to him, some sheep and stuff around, and the three magi, which are the three wise men that came, that were guided by the I believe it was the East Star, and they came to see the new king that was going to be the new king of Israel that was going to be born. So for most part, that's the setup you see in most homes and most houses. This is what you see. So this is where they get this from. This is part of the story. And it goes on and it says in verse 8, in that region there were shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. So there were shepherds living in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. So if a shepherds were out in the field, keeping watch over their flocks at night, and most likely is because they were herding. They were looking for places to for different pastures for they for their flocks to be able to graze. Now, shepherds would not be with their flocks out in the middle of the winter, having them grace in the middle of the winter in Jerusalem, in Judea during this time, in Bethlehem, because it was cold during this time. And it just wasn't logical for them to be out there during this time of the year, which is the winter time. So that eliminates from Christianity the concept that Jesus was born in the time of the winter or the winter solstice, because shepherds will not be out there feeding the flock during that time of the season or during that time of the year. It's too cold for them to be out there in Judea and Bethlehem during that time. They wouldn't be out there doing that. So that concept of him being born December, he most likely was born if he was born in the summertime or maybe during autumn season, most likely during that time. But to be born on December 25th was most likely not possible because during this time, as we could see, it's winter, it's cold. So just to eliminate that and try to get that out the way. And I'm just speaking in hypotheticals as if he did exist, because I want to bring forth this point and I want to make it clear, that if he did exist and if he was born, he would not have been born during that time or that season. So now, that was in the book of Luke, chapter 2, verses 7 through 8. That's just giving a foundation to what we're about ready to speak tonight. So now I'm going to read a paper to you. Now, there's a lot more that we could go into about the existence of Jesus and all of that, but this is not the lesson for that. I'm basically going into about the pagan origins of Xmas and where they come from. So I've had this paper over, I would say, almost 20 years. And this is a research that I did a long time ago. And when you get a chance, this paper was written by a woman by the name of Denise Snowgrad. And this is like when I first got on the internet and I started doing my Google searches. Back then it was like AOL searches before they were Google searches. So, with the slow, telephone modem, it took a long time to load up. So you had to print everything out kind of to get an understanding of it. But now with the computer technology, you could kind of save things into files and save your text into your computers and stuff. So hopefully we could get through this. It's pretty lengthy because it's like 7 different parts. So I'm going to try to get through most of it and try to get us an understanding of it. I'm going to be doing mostly a lot of reading. I thought this paper was interesting, and I'm going to stop along the way to expound on certain things, so that way we could gain understanding on what is it that we're looking at. So I thank the Most High for everyone that's in the room tonight. Let me give a quick check to see who's here. This stuff is always some new stuff here. Now I got to open up the Deborah B. Shabbat Shalom. Gavera Kaskuya, Shabbat Shalom. Hebrew Woman 2, Shabbat Shalom. And Avardia, Shabbat Shalom. I like to see people in the room, seeing that everybody's in the room. And may the Most High God bless you all. So now, I'm going to begin with reading this paper. Just bear with me. I'm going to give you some reference of some books where you can find some of this stuff. And I hope that this is interesting to you. It's kind of lengthy. It's a lot of reading. but I think it was something that was worth bringing on this night, you know, and just hopefully it's informative. And it goes and it says, Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 2-4. Thus saith Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with an axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. It says the prophecy of Jeremiah the prophet was, thus saith Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, the customs of the people are vain. This book sets forth the truth taken straight from history on the origin of the holidays and the origin of the customs associated with their celebration. Throughout this book, I'll be using sections taken directly from various encyclopedias and books on the holidays. History reveals that Christmas, New Year's, etc., all originated in Babylon as festivals celebrated by the heathen in honor of their pagan gods, but were given Christian meaning by the Catholic Church in order to convert the idol worshippers to Constantine's new Christian religion. The Catholic Church simply took the seasonal feasts and festivals celebrated by the idolatrous heathen and transformed them into Christian celebrations, or Christianized them, in order to make Christianity more meaningful to pagan converts. So in other words, what it's saying is that Christmas and New Year's celebrations and all those things, originated in Babylon, and it was passed down through different traditions, the Greeks, the Romans, and so forth and so on into certain European kingdoms. And and a lot of the traditions, remember, they preceded the birth of Christ. So a lot of the traditions, the celebrating, the merrymaking, the giving of gifts, a lot of those things were customs that these people had prior to even the birth of Christ. So when Christianity came along, and Emperor Constantine made Christianity the state religion of Rome, he accepted a lot of the traditions that came with the celebration of that winter solstice of that time of the season, in order for the people who were pagan during that time to accept Christianity much better, because they didn't really have to depart from their pagan traditions and the celebrations that they had, that they were accustomed to in their pagan traditions. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll just keep reading. The same philosophy responsible for the development of the Trinity doctrine is also responsible for the transformation of these pagan feasts. So, the Trinity doctrine comes from Egypt. I believe it's Isis, Osiris, and Horus, right? And, it's the whole Trinity concept, and also that virgin birth concept comes from that. And we see the transformation and how Christianity adopted so many foreign things to make it fit into their way of living, to make Christianity more acceptable during ancient times. So, it's just pointing out certain things and what's going on. It says, and no one God, worshiper of Jesus Christ, will again take up the celebration of these idolatrous holidays after reading this book. God said through the prophet, learn not the way of the heathen. Now it says Christmas. Throughout this chapter, I'll be referring to and sometimes printing the exact information found in, now these are some references: Christmas and Its Customs by Christina Ho, Christmas Traditions by William Muir Aoul, Celebrations by Robert J. Myers, 4,000 Years of Christmas by Earl W. Count, and 1001 Christmas Facts and Fancies by Alfred Carl Hotz. I will repeat those names again just in case you want to get these books and the people who wrote them. Christmas and Its Customs by Christina Hole, Hole, Hole. Christmas Traditions by William Muir Auld. William, M-U-I-R, Muir, A-U-L-D, Hold. Celebrations is the title of the book by Robert J. Myers. Robert J. Myers is spelled M-Y-E-R-S. The next title is 4,000 Years of Christmas by Earl W. Count. Earl W. Count, C-O-U-N-T, Earl W. Count. And 1001 Christmas Facts and Fancies by Alfred Carl Hotz. That's H-O-T-T-E-S. Alfred Carl Hotz. Now it said it's beginning in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia, is touted as the beginning of all civilization. So it's going to start with Mesopotamia. The celebration of Christmas actually outdates Christianity itself by about 4,000 years. It began in an ancient Babylonian festival thousands of years before the birth of Christ in Bethlehem. From 4,000 Years of Christmas, we read, that's referring to one of the books. Christmas began there in Mesopotamia over 4,000 years ago as the festival which renewed the world for another year. The 12 days of Christmas, the bright fires and probably the Yule log, the giving of presents, carnivals with their floats, merrymakings and clownings, the murmurs singing and playing from house to house, the feastings, church processions with their lights and song, all these and more began there centuries before Christ was born. This ancient Babylonian festival moved westward through Greece into Rome, merging with the Roman Saturnalia festival, where finally, under the Christian influence of the new religion of the Roman Empire, Constantine had united church and state, making Christianity the official state religion. It became Christianized. There still remained the merrymaking, the giving of gifts, the feasting, and the special law, but now these are with praise to the Christian God. So now it began in Mesopotamia as one tradition preceding the birth of Christ, but after it got to Rome and to Babylon and to Emperor Constantine became the emperor of Rome, and he made Christianity the state religion. All these ancient traditions that predated Jesus by 4,000 years now became a Christian tradition, and they were attributed to the birth of Christ and to the existence of Christ of the New Testament. And let us go to part 2. So now we're going to the name of this article is called Heathen Holidays by Denise Snodgrass. That's Snodgrass. So that's Denise, Snodgrass. That's for everyone that would like to follow. The Zagmuk. What was the Zagmuk? The Zagmuk was, well, we'll get into it. The article reads, to the Mesopotamians, New Year's was a time of crisis. They believed their chief god Marduk. I believe we read about Marduk in the Apocrypha or in the book of Daniel. Let me just research that. Give me one quick second here, because I don't want to mislead anybody. Give me 1 second. So Jeremiah 51, verses 44 to 46, it says here. It says Jeremiah 50, verse 2. So he was an ancient Babylonian god from Mesopotamia. They believed their chief god Marduk had created the world and man. But to create the world, he had to fight the monsters of chaos. He had built out of a world without form and void, an orderly world, and had created man. But the order remained an uneasy one. It ran down, so to speak, during the year towards its close, after the crops had been harvested. So from a word without form and voice. So now what you have to remember that the story of creation was passed down from Adam to all the generations. So when we get to Adam and we get to to his son Shade, and all the way down to Noah. By the time you get to Noah, the story of creation was passed down. And even the flood story was passed down to all generations, to when his sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, they repopulated the earth. They all had the story of creation. They all had the story of the flood. So therefore, it's not foreign for a idol worshiping society or community to have a story of the beginning of the earth being void and without form, because it was passed down. So you understand why the Mesopotamians had, or the Babylonians had, a history of the world being formed from nothingness, and being formed into the beauty that the world is today, because it was passed down. All societies have a flood story. All nations have a story about creation. It's not far-fetched. Not only Israel has this, but all nations have this. This is the thing that we have to understand, that they're going to have their variation of it, but it's not too far off from what the Most High God left on record, that we understand is the beginning of the creation of the world, and the things that are in this world that the Most High created for us, man, and the animals to live here and to be able to inhabit this beautiful earth. So I hope that was made clear. Just give me 1 second here. Make sure. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom to everyone that just has come into the room. So now get back to my article here. It says, but the order remained an uneasy one. It ran down, so to speak, during the year towards its close. After the crops had been harvested, the empty brown of the fields told the life was dying. So then Marduk again had to do battle with the monsters of chaos, so that death might not become complete. And thus he renewed the world every year. It was a grim battle fought in the regions below, and every time Marduk almost lost his struggle. So in ancient societies in Mesopotamia, they believed that during their last harvest, when they seeing, as we see with winter, when winter comes, that all vegetation dies, and after their last harvest, they see the browns of the field, meaning that, grass and everything dies. And they believe that their god Marduk had a fight with the forces of evil, the whole good against evil, and he will go into the underworld and fight, and it become a struggle, and he almost loses his life. But by the time the winter solstice come and days begin to get longer and they begin to get warmer, that Marduk prevails against the forces of chaos or the forces of evil. So it's the whole good against evil battle that is propagated through Christianity and a lot of these religions that they give you. We understand that the Most High God, there is evil spirits that come upon us, but we know that the Most High God is the controller of all things and everything. We don't attribute anything to a devil or to an entity that is as powerful as the Most High. We don't do that. So in this society right here, the Mesopotamians, Babylonians, Persian people of that region, they believe that there was a struggle with Marduk and the forces of evil. So that's why winter came about, and winter destroyed vegetation and all those things. So you have to think about the mindset that the people were in and how they thought at that time. I hope that everybody is following me, everybody is with me. Give me a 1 if you follow me, if you're with me. If I'm losing you, Let me know if I'm being clear, then let me know that I'm being clear and that you understand everything that I'm saying. So now, it was the duty of man in his puny way to help as well as he could, and much of the festival of the New Year constituted his lowly support of his God. His leader and commander was the king, who held his power and his title by the grace of God. As the Mesopotamians saw it, in the struggle of New Year, man faced a threefold problem: to purify himself of the evils which his sins of the past year had brought upon him, to renew the strength which the year had drained away, and if possible, to find a substitute who could take the consequences of the sins which he had committed. So these are the things mankind had to help the gods in order to overcome evil. So there were certain things that mankind had to do in order to help Marduk at this time, which was the god and the force of good at that point, to help him overcome the forces of evil. As the Mesopotamians saw it, all right, I read that. The first and last problems were solved by the notion of a scapegoat. So they had a scapegoat, somebody who would, all these sins and all these things will fall upon in order for mankind to continue to survive on earth and get past these winters and so forth and so on. The scapegoat in this case was a substitute for the king. So there had to have been somebody with the power of the king in order to be the substitute. Let us see what happened to the Babylonian king in this crisis when the world was dying. The New Year's festival lasted 12 days, as our Christmas season is supposed to do. As Christmas season is supposed to do. In it, the king repaired to Marduk's temple, repaired Marduk's temple to the court of the gods. The chief priest stripped from him his insignia of rank and thus dispose of his power. He knelt before Marduk's image and saw that he had done nothing against the God's will. The chief priest, speaking for Marduk, said comforting words, and in the name of the God he reinvented the king, in token that the king was restored to him by the grace of the God. So it was a whole procession, whole thing that they had to do, whole procedure that they had to go through with the priest of Marduk and the king. He was stripped of his robe and of his royal garments, basically coming before him and vowed that he had done nothing wrong. Sounds familiar. Sounds like Christianity. Don't mean to throw no shots, but that's what it sounds like. Very important part of the festival lay in the story of the creation. How Marduk had created the world and its order. The drama of the creation epic was reenacted. In theory, the king must die at the end of the year, for he shall then accompany Marduk into the underworld and battle at his side, while a new king took his place on earth. But here enters the idea of a substitute or a mock king, which saved the life of the real king. So, of course, a king at that time, he doesn't want to lose his life. So they come up with an idea to have a substitute for the king in order for the king not to lose his life. Because in the story, the king, in the reenactment of the creation of the world, the king, the living king, goes into the underworld with Marduk to fight the forces of evil that bring winter onto the earth in order to destroy life. You understand what I'm saying? So therefore, no king wants to die or wants to leave his possession or his power to another one. So they come up with an idea. We're going to get a scapegoat. And the scapegoat is going to be a substitute for the king. Like it says here, or a mock king, which saved the life of the real king. A criminal, real or fancied, was dressed in royal garb. So a criminal is expendable, especially if he committed murder, rape, or anything like that. He's expendable, so they make him the king. He was given all the homage and indulgence which is in the king's right, while the people about him held celebration. So he was treated as a king. He was put on the king's throne. He was, for all intent and purposes, he was the king. Soon his mock reign was over. He was stripped of his kingly trappings and slain in the place of the real king. So it was almost like his last. You know how they give the a prisoner who's on death row, they give you your last will and testament, or your last request. You know, it was almost like his last hurrah. You know, he got to do things. He got to be able to act as a king, but he knew his end was near. So that was the whole thing being used as a scapegoat. At last, as the festival went on, came the moment where Marduk began to prevail. The people who had been supporting and encouraging him in the battle turned to rejoicing. They drew wagons down the great avenue. They launched regattas on the Euphrates, and the custom of exchanging visits and gifts took place. So all this stuff took place. They exchanged gifts. They did all of those things. It was, as they say, the most wonderful time of the year. And y'all know I'm joking, but you know what I mean. The most wonderful time of the year. So now, trying to open up this. Give me one more second. It says here, so now it says here, this was the ancient Babylonian Zakmuk festival, another festival which both Persians and Babylonians celebrated. Another festival which both Persians and Babylonians celebrated was called the Sakkaya. So now, this Zakmuk, let's look it up. I like looking up things. And, as I'm going along with y'all and I'm learning the same way. Sometimes I learn along with y'all. It says right here, Zakmuk celebration. Zakmuk, which literally means beginning of the year, is a Mesopotamian festival celebrating the new year. The feast fell all right, so we could look it up. The celebration for the Zagmuk was actually in April, which is around our New Year. So, but the celebration part, the giving of gifts, and all those things is what they're associating actually with the celebration of Christmas. You understand what I'm saying? And the traditions. So, although this was celebrated during the time of Abib, which is the new year, which is our new year. They're talking about the traditions and all the merry makings and everything that go with it, that they associated with it. So it says another festival which both Persians and Babylonians celebrated was called the Sakkaya, which is Sacaea. Let's look that up. Let's see what it says here. Let me see Sakkaya. Sakkaya. Is the Akitu or Akitum, the barley cutting, barley sowing. Akkadian was a spring festival in ancient Mesopotamia. The Babylonian Akitu festival has played a pivotal role in the development of theories of religion, myth, and ritual. Yet the purpose of the festival remains a point of contention among both historians of religion and archaeologists. So now it's the same celebration as we see and it comes with the whole celebration of the new year. So that's where we're at this point. So all peoples learn from this tremendous land of Mesopotamia, which is called the mother of civilization. Everything happening there was in the course of time imitated by its neighbors, imitated yet never copied exactly. Thus it traveled westward through Greece to Rome, but it also took another road which led from Asia Minor through the Balkans up the Danube Valley into the heart of Europe. So the idea of this festival originating in Babylon reached the Roman Empire through Greece and penetrated the Northland through at least two different routes, Rome and the Danube. In Greece, there was an old god Cronus. He is, by the way, Father Time. His festival was the old Sakia, going westward. In ancient Babylonia, it was Marduk who conquered the monsters that lived before our world was created. In Greece, it was Zeus who fought and overcame Cronus, his titans. The figures in the drama change, the incidents also, but the plot remains. So it's showing how certain traditions was passed down from civilization to civilization, and how they adopted certain characters. They just changed the name to the characters. It goes on and it says, the Romans believed in an ancient god of seed time, Saturn, who had ruled their country ages before their own day, before he was overthrown by Jupiter. Whenever the Romans thought that one of their gods resembled a Greek god, they concluded that the two were the same. The Romans then took over the forms of worship which the Greeks already had observed. So Cronos came to Rome, and Sakia entered into the Saturnalia. Saturnalia. Let us try to visualize the Roman Empire before Christianity became its official religion. The city was wholly given over to idolatry. The first day of Saturnalia began on December 17th and continued through the calends of January, beginning on January 1st. The calends of January ushered in the new year. Together, they converted the closing and opening of the year into one continuous and uproarious carnival. The approach of the feast was hailed by Romans in the empire with wild joy, and began when a pontiff, standing in front of Saturn's temple, exclaimed, Ho Saturnalia, ho Saturnalia. Sandwiched in between the Saturnalia and the calendar of January was December 25th, the day, as the Romans calculated, when the sun was at its lowest ebb, ready to increase again and impart its strength to the growing things of the earth. So the 25th was the solstice, around the time of the winter solstice, when the sun was at its lowest ebb, but when it will begin to strengthen itself and the days will begin to increase in time. The not the days, but the amount of sunlight that we begin to see in the earth will increase right after this day, or right at this day, December 25th. So by the time it left Mesopotamia, and it was the Sakia, and it was the Zagmuk, by the time it got to Rome, it became the celebration of Saturnalia, which is a old Roman celebration. Let's look up this Saturnalia. The Saturnalia was an ancient Roman festival in honor of the deity Saturn, held on the 17th December of the Julian calendar, and later expanded with festivities through to 23rd December. The holiday was celebrated with the sacrifice at the Temple of Saturn in the Roman Forum and a public banquet, followed by private gift giving and continued partying, and a carnival atmosphere that overturned Roman social norms. Gambling was permitted, and masters provided table service for their slaves. The poet Catullus called it the best of days. In Roman mythology, Saturn was an agricultural deity who was said to have reigned over the world in the Golden Age, when humans enjoyed the spontaneous bounty of the earth without labor in a state of innocence. The, the revelries of Saturnalia were supposed to reflect the conditions of the Lord's mythical age, not all of them desirable. The Greek equivalent was the chronia. Although probably the best known Roman holiday, Saturnalia as a whole, is not described from beginning to end in any single ancient source. Modern understanding of the festival is pieced together from several accounts dealing with various aspects. The Saturnalia was the dramatic setting of the multi-volume work of that name by Macrobius, a Latin writer from late antiquity, who is the major source for information about the holiday. In one of the interpretations in Macrobius' work, Saturnalia is a festival of light leading to the winter solstice, with the abundant presence of candles symbolizing the quest for knowledge and truth. The renewal of light and the coming of the new year was celebrated in the later Roman Empire at the Dies Natalis Solis, Invicti, the birthday of the unconquerable sun, on December 25th. So now we see the connection. We see where things begin to form, where traditions come from, where things were created from. And, the shame is that a lot of our people are deaf, dumb, and blind, and they don't open their eyes, so they don't do research to find out where these celebrations come from and where all of these traditions come from, that our people are led astray to. You get Chinese people that never celebrated Christmas in their life. Their tradition is not of Christmas, and they're celebrating Christmas. In China, they said that they had to put, in China, this is a regular day. It's not any kind of great celebration, but now the youth is starting to pick up on it, and it's becoming a globalized holiday where people spend more and more and more money, and they're picking up traditions that weren't their traditions. And the older Chinese folks are worried about it because they feel like their children are losing tradition. And then this is why, you understand, and I'm not speaking against the American government, but everybody doesn't want to be westernized. Everybody doesn't want to adopt Western ways, or don't want to follow Western customs, because they feel like, it poisons their families and their children's minds. But, that's a discussion for another day. Let me keep reading on. The approach of the feast was hailed by Romans in the empire with wild joy, and began when a pontiff standing in front of Saturn's temple exclaimed, "Ho Saturnalia, ho Saturnalia." So I read that already. Let's go to part 3. I hope that y'all still with me. I hope that this brings some type of interest. Here we go here. All right, I'm glad to know that I got a cipher in the building. Like I say, I wish that I could get a couple of brothers to do a hangout with me. It makes it much more easier for me to do a Google Hangout, because then, I could hear other people's opinions, but I need people who are willing to do this, and to be on top of it, and to be on top of your knowledge of certain things. You understand? Not just, yeah, I want to be on because I just want to be on, and then you really don't know your information. You have to know your information and be on top of it. Not saying that we're not perfect, that any of us is perfect, but just to know your information. So I'm going to part 3 of this, the Xmas story, part 3. Recall the prophecy of Jeremiah, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Before man learned to measure time in 12-month cycles, time was measured by seasons. They celebrated the seasons with feasts and festivals to make the gods happy. But then man began to gather the beginning of the seasons cycles to fix astronomical phenomena, that is, to the position and movement of the sun, moon, and stars. The heathen did worship the entire solar system. December 25th is the winter solstice. So let's see about this. So we spoke about the solstice, right? What is a solstice? A solstice is an astronomical event that occurs twice each year, in June and December. As the sun reaches its highest or lowest excursion relative to the celestial equator on the celestial sphere, both the solstices and the equinoxes are directly connected with seasons of the year. This term solstice can also be used in a broader sense, as the day when this occurs says that the day of the solstice is either the longest day of the year, summer solstice, or the shortest day of the year, winter solstice, for any place outside of the tropics, or alternative terms with no ambiguity as to which hemisphere is the context, as June solstice and December solstice referring to the months of the year in which they take place. At latitude in the temperature zone, the summer solstice marks the day when sun appears highest in the sky. However, in the tropics, the sun appears directly overhead, called the subsolar point, some days or even months before the solstice, and again after the solstice, which means the subsolar point occurs twice each year. So now it's speaking to us about the two solstices, which are the winter solstice, which is when the sun appears at its lowest ebb, and the summer solstice, which is where it appears at its highest ebb in the sky. So in the summer solstice, that's the longest period of sunlight at that point in the earth. Longest period of sunlight in a day, and on the winter solstice, you get the least amount of sunlight in a day. As we just got these like now you're going to begin to see basically Shabbat day is going to begin to get longer and longer and longer because the winter solstice already passed, and that's where when we read into this where the Romans began to call it the day of the unconquerable sun, because they said that the sun renewed his strength, and now the sun is lasting longer and longer and longer within a day. So this was their whole breakdown of this and how they look at it. Here it goes. December 25th is the winter solstice. Technically, it is when the winter solstice is noticed rather than December 21st, 22nd. It is the time when the sun, after having been at the lowest point in the heavens, begins to rise over the world with renewed vigor and power. It was a time of heathen festivities and worship of the sun. The vernal equinox is the point where the sun crosses the celestial equator about March 20th. So that's during that's the equinox, the vernal equinox. That is the beginning of spring around that time. Making day and night of equal length everywhere. This was the time of pagan spring festivals. The day, December 25th, acquired a new significance under the rule of Emperor Aurelian. He proclaimed this day as Dies Natalis Invicti Solis, or the birthday of the unconquered sun. This was because of a strange Eastern religion, Mithraism, whose god Mithras was identified with the unconquered sun. During the Saturnalia work of every kind seized, schools were closed. So Mithras was the celebration. So Mithras was what Emperor Aurelian was into, and this Mithraism religion was basically a sun worship religion, and they associated the holiday, this Mithras, with the worship of the sun, which was around the time of the winter solstice, which they celebrated this actual holiday to Mithras. Saturn, in whose honor this feast was held, was the oldest and most benign deity in ancient Italy and was fabled to have reigned during the Golden Age. This was conceived by the Romans as an era in which plenty abounded and nothing that appeared to corrupt and mar the peace and happiness of mankind. But since that time the world had gone from bad to worse. The lust of gold and the lust of blood had brought disastrous evils. The dream of an age of gold was was widespread in the pre-Christian world. The Greeks taught men to think of it as followed by the Silver, Bronze, and Iron Ages. These ages marked the steady declination and degeneration of mankind, but they looked for the eventual return of a gold era. This spirit of Gentile expectancy was that of a millennial, and King Saturn will reign. As the Saturnalia return each year brought with it thoughts of the peaceful reign of Saturn long, long ago when all men were happy and all men were good. So what Emperor Aurelian tried to do, he tried to bring back the old way. He tried to bring back a golden era once again because it was a decline. It was a decline in what they saw as when they came from the golden era to this point. So he tried to renew this golden era that was promised that would return in ancient times, and that's what he tried to do. But we know that it's not a golden era. The Roman Saturnalia was boisterous. But whatever the behavior of some Romans, others were simply merry. They ate big dinners, visited their friends, etc. The halls of Romans were decked with boughs of laurel and green trees, with lighted candles and with lamps. For the hovering spirits of darkness were afraid of light. Bonfires were lit in high places to strengthen the reviving sun in his course. Candles and green wreaths were given as presents. The streets were crowded with noisy processions of men and women carrying lighted tapers, and public places were decked with flowers and shrubs. The practice of giving and receiving presents was almost as common then as it is now at Christmas. Our present-day Christmas spirit is actually the spirit of this old Roman festival, Mithraism, which later became Saturnalia. So now we begin to see that the green trees in the house, the wreaths, the lighting of candles, which today is equivalent to putting lights all over your house and merrymaking and the joy during this time. It's all originated from ancient time and festivals that predated the Christian holiday of Christmas. So realistically, Christmas is a Johnny come lately celebration. It's not even a so it is it's not even the birth of the so-called Christ of the New Testament. Is celebrations that were adopted by Christian fathers in order for pagans to accept Christianity during the time that they wanted Christianity to become that religion or the state religion of Rome, or they made it become the state religion of Rome. So we begin to see the beginnings where things transpired, where things came from, and we just, we knowledge is beautiful. Knowledge is wonderful. When you seek it, you will find it. But you have to seek it. You can't just say, I don't celebrate Christmas. You gotta know a little bit about it. You don't gotta know everything about it, but you have to know a little bit about it so that you could defend yourself and be able to fend people off and stand on your two feet and be able to stand strong. During the calends of January, which lasted for 3 days, Roman houses were adorned with lights and greenery, and presents were given to friends and children to the poor. And the children and to the poor. So the present giving and all that stuff was part of that tradition. We can see how the exchanging of gifts was an important feature of this Roman festival from the writings of Libanius, an ancient sophist. He might be writing about Christmas in the modern world from the way it reads. The festival of Calends is celebrated everywhere as far as the limits of the Roman Empire extend. The impulse to spend ceases everyone. People are not only generous towards themselves, but also towards their fellow men. A stream of presents pours itself out on all sides. The calends festivals banishes all that is connected with toil and allows men to give themselves up to undisturbed enjoyment. From the minds of young people, it removes two kinds of dread: the dread of the schoolmaster and the dread of the stern pedagogues. Another great quality of the festival is that it teaches men not to hold too fast to their money, but to part with it and let it pass into other hands. So now it says, you know, like we do today, kids don't go to school during this time. I got to look up this word right here. I wanted to look it up with y'all to see what it meant. Pedagogue. I don't know how to say it. Hopefully it's a word. There we go. Pedagogue. 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 It means a teacher, especially a strict or pedantic one. That's an educator, tutor, instructor, master, mistress, governess, educationist. So now, all right. A person who teaches, especially in a school. So, they were released from the schoolmaster and from the teacher, basically. The kids, presents were given, people were out in the street, revelry, all types of things was going on. It says, now, I have described the ancient Babylonian festival of Zamuk, Zagmuk, where Christmas had its beginning, and the Roman Saturnalia, which was the merging of the Zamuk and the Zacchaea. The Greek festival in honor of Cronus was the ancient Babylonian and Persian Zacchaea. Emperor Aurelian had proclaimed Mithraism as the official state religion of the Roman Empire, but Christianity becomes the new religion under Constantine, and the Catholic Church becomes faced with the struggle to convert the pagans. We will answer these two important questions. One, why did the idea of celebrating the birth of Christ arise and how? Two, why was the date December 25th chosen for this celebration? The earliest Christians were not interested in Jesus' birthday, but by the 4th century they have become very much interested. While interested in the man Christ Jesus, their thought and affection did not as yet include the child Jesus, but they came to focus their eyes upon Jesus the infant and Mary his mother. Many people were coming to the notion that his birthday should be observed. This idea came about as the church began to regard Mary, the mother of Jesus, in a new light. She had long been revered along with the saints and apostles, but only along with them. But now, in this same 4th century, she emerges as the Queen of Heaven. Queen of Heaven, the concept of the Queen, Mother of Heaven, was a concept that was given to Astarte thousands of years before even the story of Mary and Jesus came about. But she became the Queen of Heaven. So old titles and things are recycled. There is no such thing as a Queen of Heaven. Remember, she was Astarte or Ishtar was considered the Queen Mother of Heaven. So all these things and a lot of these titles are based in pagan traditions. There never would have been a Christmas except the worship of Mary had emerged. They now put her in heaven, not merely as an intercessor, but a queen. She has to be a queen. She's the mother of quote unquote God in Christianity. So now we're going to go to part 4. Moving along pretty good. I thought I would be more fatigued, but I think it's pretty good. I see more people are joining in. Invite people, invite some. I know some of your Christian family might not want to hear this right now, but if you could invite people, if you could invite some brothers and sisters, Israelites that might not know about this, invite them, send them the link, share it with people. That's the only way we could get this stuff out. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to share certain links with people, and because it's to edify people and to bring more understanding to our community, to let people know that these commercialized holidays, we have to be careful with them and understand that it's just a ploy to get us broke. You know how many people got into credit card debt from these holidays? You trying to run out there and get gifts and presents and all types of stuff. I guarantee you, and I'm just making a little joke, I guarantee you that all those Black Power guys and all those Egyptologists that got all this knowledge, I guarantee you that they were out there buying presents and getting in the celebration of Xmas. I guarantee that. They're not going to say that, but I guarantee it. I guarantee there's some of those that some of our brothers and sisters, Messianic brothers and sisters, are into that celebration. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And that's the danger of this, because our people, they fall into it. Todayah, that my children never gotten a Christmas gift. They were born in this way of life. I can't say that for myself, but once I learned about it, it's a separation. You understand? So let me see here. Part 4. Glad that everybody got a good amount of people on tonight. That's great. I guess y'all knew I was going to talk about this Christmas tonight, huh? Here we go. The Xmas story, part 4. Like I said, I'm reading off this excerpt. I had it for over like 20 years. I found it back on the internet. And I'm just reading it off and expounding on certain things. We're doing research. And we just having a good time. Why did the Catholic Church choose December 25th for the birthday of Christ? It was chosen in order to compete with the pagan winter solstice festivals. It was not chosen because it is the correct historical date for the birth of Jesus. When was Jesus born? No one knows. There seems to have been too many calendar errors for anyone to be exact. The traditional date of the year is one common error, for his birth stands greatly in need of correction. Before the mode of reckoning time by the year of our Lord, or AD, which was introduced by Dionysius Exiguus, a Roman time was computed from the founding of the city of Rome, usually designated by AUC. Dionysius made his new era to begin on the first day of January in the 753rd year from the building of Rome, because in that year he supposed Christ to have been born. St. Matthew says Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. According to the best authorities, this monarch died a short time before the Jewish Passover, 750 UUC. Some place the birth of Jesus between the years 748 and 747 AUC. This is 5 and 6 BC. Others go as far back as 8 BC, before the Common Era. So these are some of the when Jesus was born in the New Testament. Have to do it just for the sake of, keeping everything and us knowing what's going on. But the season in which he was born definitely was not winter. The Gospels tells us that at the time Caesar Augustus had decreed that all the world should be taxed, we may be assured that Rome would not order a census to be taken at the worst possible period for travel, which is winter, December. Why would you declare a tax during the time where it's going to be the roughest for you to try to do this, where you have to have your people out there traveling? It doesn't make any logical sense to have a tax during that time. But Luke's account that the shepherds were abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night, lets us know that Jesus was born in the summer or early fall. Like I went into the book of Luke, chapter 2, verse 7 and 8, and it spoke about the shepherds being out. They wouldn't be out there in the middle of the winter. Bethlehem, Judah gets cold during that time, so they wouldn't be out there. It says, but Luke's account that the shepherds were abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night, lets us know that Jesus was born in the summer or early fall. Since December is cold and rainy in Judea, it is likely the shepherds will have sought shelter for their flocks at night. So December 25th is no more the correct historical date for the birth of Jesus Christ than any other date. December 25th was sacred. not only to the pagan Romans, but to the religion from Persia. Mithraism, whose followers worshiped the sun and celebrated his return to strength on the day. On that day, Mithras had attained such popularity and favor in the eyes of the emperors that Aurelian proclaimed the cult of Sol Invictus the Roman Empire's official state religion. December 25th fell between the week-long feast of the Saturnalia and the calends of January. And it coincided more or less closely with all those midwinter festivals at which the primitive peoples of Europe and Asia had celebrated from time immemorial the sun's rebirth at the winter solstice. To the pagans, the Saturnalia were fun. To the Christian, the Saturnalia were abomination and homage to a disreputable God who had no existence anyway. The Christians were now dedicated to the slow task of converting the pagan Romans who were into the Saturnalia, celebrating the Saturnalia into Mithraism. There were many immigrants into the ranks of the church by this time, but the church fathers discovered that they were facing an invasion of pagan customs. Christianity and paganism began contending, and for a while, Mithraism was Christianity's greatest contender. But how did the Catholic Church convert the pagans? With their December 25th sun worship festival, it became the policy of the church to transform pagan festivals wherever possible instead of trying to abolish them and give the ancient practices a Christian significance. It definitely was a clever trick. So Mithraism was the religion of the pagans that they adopted, and the Saturnalia was the celebration at the end of the year. So, the Christian fathers had a dilemma because people wasn't giving up they pagan celebration. They had too much fun. So Christian fathers had to come up with a way to intertwine everything and make it Christian. Now remember, during that time, the Roman Catholic Church controlled the press. The priests were the ones, and the rich people were the ones that predominantly were the ones who read books and had all these things. So they controlled history in a sense, and they rewrote certain things in a way to fit them and make it fit Christianity the way they wanted to make it fit. They weren't dummies. They were very intelligent people, and these are the things that we have to keep in mind. And they were very clever. You understand what I'm saying? Emperor Constantine had a church father in a pen by the name of Eusebius, and he declared that it was okay to change facts or to make interpolations in order to strengthen the case of the church. So that's where a lot of interpolations and a lot of added things came into books that weren't there originally. That were not there originally. So you have to keep these things. The church fathers were willing to lie and to cheat in order to make their point come across. So now it says, here, there were many immigrants into the ranks of the church by this time, but the church fathers discovered that they were facing an invasion of pagan customs. Christianity and paganism became contending, for while Mithraism was Christianity's greatest contender. But how did the Catholic Church convert the pagans with their December 25th sun worship festival? It became the policy of the church to transform pagan festivals wherever possible instead of trying to abolish them and give the ancient practices a Christian significance. It definitely was a clever trick. So they just adopted. So they took the Saturnalia and turned it into the birth of Jesus. Certain things from Mithraism, they took them and just converted it so that they could draw the pagans into Christianity, cause them to accept Christianity much better, because at this point it's a state religion of Rome. And it's not that hard. You don't have to lose your traditions. You keep doing what you do. The church, in choosing December 25th to celebrate the birthday of Christ, will persuade the church in choosing December 25th to celebrate the birthday of Christ will persuade the followers of Mithras to forsake him and turn to Christ as the true light of the world. The Catholic Church chose the date to celebrate the rising of the Son of Righteousness, that she should thus strive to draw away to his worship the adorers of the God whose symbol and representative, was the earthly sun. The church fathers sought to point the pagan festival in worship of the sun towards the Christian Son of Righteousness. And if there could be done, then the festival in its turn must of necessity grow worthy of him is celebrated. The church finally succeeded in taking the merriment, the greenery, the lights, and the gifts from Saturn and giving them to the babe of Bethlehem. So now, you have to remember, Emperor Constantine was a politician. Now Emperor Constantine was he practiced both religions, Christianity and he was a clever politician because he was into Mithraism. That's where he came from. That's what he was born into. So now, when you look at his coin, when you look at Constantine coin that they have dug up, you see one side of his coin has his face on it, and the other side of his coin has his sons. They have found this in excavation. So he worshipped the sun. He was in Mithraism. He did all these things. So he wanted to meld both of these traditions together, and he did it cleverly. He did it the best way that he could see fit, and he adopted. So that now our Christian people have to understand these things, and they have to research and they have to see where these festivities come from and these things that they're celebrating. They said that the best way to hide something from black people is by putting it in a book. We have to begin to read books. We have to begin to read articles and become edified and not be led astray by the traditions of paganism. By choosing December 25th, the indications are that the Catholic Church grasped the opportunity to turn the people away from a purely pagan observance of the winter solstice to a day of adoration of Christ the Lord. She simply made the old heathen festival of the sun analogs to the birth of the Son of Righteousness. The birth of the Christ as the light of the world was linked to the rebirth of the sun. So remember, it went from the winter solstice celebration, the rebirth of the sun. At that point, the sun is the lowest ebb in the earth, but it begins to renew his strength as ancient societies will look and observe it as, and the days begin to get more and more and more sunlight, so it looked like the sun was getting stronger. So now, Christian fathers and Constantine took that concept and said it's the rebirth of not the physical sun, but the rebirth of the righteous Son, the Son of Righteousness, who will bring light unto the world. These are all play on words. Keep these things in mind and keep these things in our brains so that we understand what's really going on at this time. That the new festival should not be lacking in appeal. The days between December 25th and January 6th, the days between the Saturnalia and the calendar of January were caught up into one holy season with the birth of the divine child at the beginning and the coming of the Magi, the three wise men, at the end. The days between Christmas and Epiphany became known as the 12 nights of Christmas. The 12th day, on the first day of Christmas, my dada get to me. That sort of stuff, Checking the list twice. Checking to see whether you be naughty or nice. All that sort of stuff. Well, y'all know what I'm talking about because y'all come from that stuff. But, 12 days of Christmas. We get all that time off also from our kids get it from school. It's all intertwined with society. And that's what's going on. The word Christmas came into use through the medieval custom of celebrating Mass at midnight on Christmas Eve, the only time in the year when this was permitted because of the opposition to the traces of paganism surviving in the Christmas customs. The church created special masses to be performed at midnight, daybreak, and morning, hence the word Christmas. That's where the word Christmas comes from, Christ's Mass. Now we're going to go to part 5 of this. We're getting through this pretty good, I believe. Hope everybody's with me still. Here we go. Hope y'all still with me. Part 5 of this article. Moving through this pretty fast. I thought that this would have been longer. It says that I've only been on for 25 minutes. I don't think I've been on for that short period of time. It feels like I've been on for longer than that, but it says I've only been on for 25 minutes. I don't know if that's quite true. How long have I been really on for? For over an hour now, right? Let's see. Part 5. When the feast of the Nativity first arose, there were no bells, no greenery, and no good cheer. The fathers tried strenuously to keep Christmas strictly a churchly celebration as a worship of the Madonna and Child. But they could not abolish the pagan customs of the winter solstice. Christmas was caught up with and carried away in pagan merrymaking. So they couldn't control, church fathers couldn't control what they wanted, so they basically just adopted. The Mithraism passed away, leaving few marks of the Nativity celebration, being the successful rival. But the same thing cannot be said for certain other festivals which closed and opened the year among Romans and Germanics, the Saturnalia and the Yule. For many, a day the church fought bitterly the superstitions and excess bound up with the calendars of Yule, but burning denunciations and threats of excommunication failed to wean the barbarians from their heathen modes of rejoicing. Those customs which could not be uprooted and destroyed were given a Christian name and interpretation, and as such survive in many instances to the present day. So, what the church couldn't extricate, it sought to consecrate and purify. So what they couldn't do away with, they just consecrated it and purified it and said it's holy now. All the pagan things that they could not eliminate, they just say, hey, we say for our fathers, 2 Hail Marys, and we're purified and sanctified. You can't do that. These heathen contributions to the celebration of the Nativity are what make Christmas what it is. When the season calls to mind crackling fires on the earth, lighted candles, rooms adorned with evergreens, fruits and nuts, feasts and frolic. These are the genuine pagan elements which the Catholic Church could not uproot. When once drawn within the circle, they were loath to leave. We will look at various Christmas customs individually after first looking at how Christmas was introduced into other parts of Europe through Catholic missionaries. The Germans, Gauls, Britons celebrate Brumalia on December 25th. The Norsemen held Yule feasts between December 25th and January 6th. Their Germano-Celtic pastoral feast was known by various names such as Jaluis and Gili. In Scandinavia, it was Yule. Many of the customs of these festivals as well as the Roman Saturnalia and calendars of January became a part of Christmas. Thus, the Yuletide. Let's look that up. The Yuletide. And let's see what that means. Because now we begin to see where these traditions come from. Yuletide is the archaic form of Christmas. Let's see here. The Yule. It says right here, Yule or Yuletide. It's a festival observed by the historical Germanic peoples, later undergoing Christianized reformulation, resulting in the now better known Christmas tide. The earliest reference to Yule are by way of indigenous Germanic month names, Era Geola, before Yule, or Giuli or Aeftera Geola after Yule. Scholars have connected the celebration of the wild hunt, the god Odin, and the pagan Anglo-Saxon Modranhit. Terms with an etymological equivalent to Yule are used in the Nordic countries for Christmas with its religious rites, but also for the holidays of this season. Yule is also used to a lesser extent in English-speaking countries to refer to Christmas. Customs such as the Yule log, Yule goat, Yule boy, Yule singing, and others stem from Yule. A number of neo-pagans have introduced their own rites. So hey, Yule is the whole Yule celebration was a Germanic thing. It had nothing to do with Christianity. It wasn't Christian at all. They were barbarians. They were chopping people's heads off and eating animals raw. They were celebrating the winter solstice. But Christianity came and made it all fit. So now we got all these terms, the Yuletide or the Yule log and all these things and the wreaths inside the house and we're going to read about the mistletoe later. All these things are pagan traditions. So now, let's see. Let us keep reading here. It says, we will look at various Christmas customs and individually after first looking at how Christmas was introduced into other parts of Europe through Catholic missionaries. All right, we read that part already. The name Yule can be traced back to Anglo-Saxon word for wheel because it bore some relationship to the circular course of the sun through the wheeling points of the solstices and equinoxes. They're saying the word Yule could be referred back to the word for wheel during the an Anglo-Saxon word, which had to do with the solstices, which they were worshiping the renewal of the sun. It all makes sense. The church sent out an army of missionaries, but even before the missionaries brought ideas of Christian Rome to them, the Germanic peoples had learned a good deal from pagan Rome. But the Near East, Mesopotamia, Babylon, had long influenced the Northland via the Balkans and the Danube Valley. For instance, St. Nicholas may first have reached the heart of Europe, not from the south, but from the southeast. But the Germanics had no way of measuring solstices and equinoxes until they learned it from the Romans. They also learned of the Roman Saturnalia after the barbarians were Christianized. All the customs and superstitions which had belonged from ancient times to their own Yuletide, and all that they had embedded from Romans began to cluster about it. So the old pagan Germanics, the year began with winter, but what they called winter included our late autumn. By October and November, the harvest was in and the cattle bedded down. With the long months of snow ahead and barely the provender or hand for the beeves and swine. They considered it wise to thin out the herds, lest later all the animals starve. A greater slaughter was followed by feastings. This feasting was in thanks to their gods, Thor, Odin, Njord, and Frey. The god who cared for the fertile herd was Frey, after whom Friday is named, and his animal symbol was the boar. Even after the pagan gods had passed away, the boar sacrifice to Frey was too enjoyable to be forgotten. So there you got the ham on the table, and pork is part of the Christmas dinner and the Christmas tradition. It survives in the feasts of merry old England, in which the boar is treated as if it were some royal personage. The show of the slaughtered beast, adorned with green garlands in an English town just before Christmas, reminds some strongly of these ancient gory feasts. And the same thing can be said of the American marts with their hecatombs of turkeys. Their ancestors worshipped a god to whom they sacrificed, but they themselves probably never heard of Frey. It was discovered by the Catholic missionaries that the heathen were more ready to abandon their gods and the dates of their festivals than to change their habits and manners. The festive boar proved the least susceptible of all the transformation. So the Yule table remained a part of Christmas. Like I said, with the ham on the table. The Christian, in those days, they would put a whole pig on the table. The Christianizing work went on. The pagan deities were all slain and entombed in the days of the week, in the months of the year. Friday was named for Frey. Wednesday is literally Woden's Day. And once Woden was chief among the northern gods, how Woden became Santa Claus will be explained later in this chapter. Wow. Moving right along. Part 6. Hoping that you're enjoying this and that this is all very clear to you all. Somebody wrote here, Mavardia wrote, they will go to war and who they kill bring back their heads, hang them on pine trees along with anything of value they person had, like good jewel, which they felt gave luck in New Year. Hey, everybody could add to this conversation. Everyone could add to this conversation. This is great. This is great. I like when people participate. It makes it great. It makes it a great thing. Miles, Miles, can you please try to, I know you're in the next room. Can you please try to find a way to record to save the comments, because after this is posted up and these comments disappear, the comments that the people are writing. So try to find a way to see if these things could be saved, and then so we can have them. So because a lot of the comments and stuff I don't get to read them because I don't have a chance to go back to them. So just make sure you can find a way to save the comments for me, so that way I could address people's questions and address everything that's going on. All right, son. All right. Now we will now turn to various surviving pagan customs associated with the celebration of Christmas. The Yule log. This is a pagan custom from the Yule festival of the Teutonic and Celtic tribes, which Yule festival was in honor of the god Thor. The Saxons, and the Goths burned the Yule log at the festival of the winter solstice. Each year, a brand was saved to rekindle a new fire. The remnants were believed to have magic powers, and the log symbolized protection and against evil spirits. Fortunes were told by the Yule log. and its light was considered sacred. To the ancestors of the Catholic faith, Christmas was called the Feast of Lights. The lights and fires incorporated into the Nativity celebration were made to symbolize the fact that the darkness of the world was past and true light now shone. This background explains the lights on the Christmas tree. Everything about the Christmas fire and lights was considered very sacred. The blaze of the fire was made to symbolize Christ as the light of the world. Christmas candles. The Yule candle was burned as a companion to the Yule log. The modern candles set in windows have their origin in the Yule candle. The tradition was brought to this country by the Irish. In Ireland, during the years of religious suppression, candles were put in the windows to attract fugitive priests who would know it was safe to enter the houses and to say mass. Modern candles used for decoration, though electric and not wax, and incorporate the same principle the Catholic Church set forth as Christ, the light of the world. Evergreens. You have already read how houses and public places were decorated with evergreens during the Saturnalian calendar of January. They were never sought merely for their decorative capabilities. The evergreens were used as defense against demons and witches they thought were especially prevalent during this time of year. They thought the winter demons were afraid of the greens because they stayed green all year. Green belongs in the realm of the summer and life. Winter kills most summer's vegetation, but the evergreens remain steadfast. They were symbols of everlasting life to the heathen. So the evergreen, the pine tree, it stays green through the winter. So these Germanic tribes and these Europeans, they thought that it possessed some type of magical power. So they will bring these trees into their homes to ward off evil spirits. So the tradition of bringing in the Christmas tree or the evergreen into your house came from a Germanic or a European concept that they just adopted into Christianity. And now everything is copacetic. So this is what so when you bring in a Hanukkah bush into your house, that's exactly what you're doing. You're celebrating the whole Yuletide tradition. That's what you're celebrating. Stop playing. Hanukkah bushes is you're just trying to substitute Hanukkah for Xmas. Stop it. As Israelites, we shouldn't be doing that. Don't be giving your children gifts and doing all types of stuff for Hanukkah. Come on. That's a winter solstice celebration. Stop it. It has roots in pagan. It has pagan roots. Let's leave that alone, brothers and sisters. At first, the church frowned upon this intrusion, paganism into the sacred season on account of the superstitious sentiments which were bound up with them, but it was too deeply rooted for prohibitions to have permanent effect, and in due course they were annulled or forgotten. Instead of banning them, she more often permitted their continuance, directing her efforts towards investing them with a new sanctity and meaning. While they were often made to represent higher and holier things, the older notions were not always discarded. Hence, the mixture of ideas began, and Christian, which became intertwined with the greenery of the season. The plants which more than any others entwine themselves about the festival are holly, ivy, mistletoe, and rosemary. So now it's going into all the traditions, the mistletoe, the holly, the ivy. All these things were intertwined with the celebration of the Yule, and we could find all those traditions today in Christmas celebration. Holly was admired by the heathen Druids, who believed that its evergreen leaves attested to the fact that the sun never deserted it, and since the sun was held in worship, holly was sacred because it withstood the winter. Holly was supposed to be hateful to witches and was therefore placed on doors and windows to keep out evil spirits. Under the influence of Christian thought and sentiment, holly became very sacred, but ivy remained for a longer time on the pagan level. The red berries on the holly once had a pagan meaning, being the blood drops and the beautiful Balder, an ill-fated darling of Valhalla. Given its new Christian meaning, the berries now speak of the blood drops, which the cruel crown of thorns drew from the Savior's brow. So it went from meaning one thing in paganism to now meaning the blood drops that come from the crown of thorn that was placed on Jesus's head. They just took it, incorporated it, sanctified it, threw some holy water on it, and made it Christian. Mistletoe gift of the gods, kissing under mistletoe, Scandinavian myth involving Frigga, the counterpart of Venus, and Balder, the counterpart for Apollo. Rosemary, the Catholic legend, to wean people from their old beliefs. Laurel, the Christmas tree. Go to part 7 now, which is the last part. Now, we will now turn to various surviving pagan customs associated with the celebration of Christmas. Exchanging gifts. The exchange of gifts and greetings at or near Christmas time began long before the Catholic Church put their new Christian meaning to the custom. You have already read how gifts and visits were part of Babylonian festival in the Roman Saturnalia, calends of January in pagan Rome. Rich men gave generously to their poor neighbors during the Saturnalia, and at the calends of January, gifts were even more plentiful. Gift giving was an essential part of the pagan celebrations. The church frowned upon it as sternly as upon the New Year's customs. In the first centuries, Christians did not give each other presents in the Christmas season, or if they did, it was without ecclesiastical sanction. But the church, rather than abolishing the custom, simply pointed the gift giving away from Saturn to the babe in Bethlehem to commemorate the gifts of the Magi, the three wise men, to the infant Jesus. Anyone ought to know that Christmas time is the biggest spending time of the entire year and the most profitable time of the year for businesses. Merchants make more money during these heathen holidays than any other time of the year, and the Catholic Church makes it possible. Why? Because they support it, and they have given passes to everything. Santa Claus. Santa Claus was created by Mergen Wooten, one of the gods of the Northland, with the Roman Catholic bishop who was canonized a saint. Wooten was chief among the Northland gods. He came from the Near East, Mesopotamia, Babylon, and made his way northward into Scandinavia, where his name was pronounced Odin. When the Germanics adopted him, they acquired some new and more exalted ideas of what a god could or should be. For gradually, Odin grew into a very wise god who knew everything that was going on in the world. On each of his shoulders perched a sharp-eyed, wag-tongued raven who flew both to the ends of the earth and came back to prattle everything it saw. Sometimes Odin himself toured the world on his white horse, Sleipnir, who had 8 legs to give him greater speed. At other times, Odin preferred to hike, wrapped in his blue cloak and wearing his broad brim hat, carrying his wonder staff. What is amazing about Wooden is his capacity for becoming someone else, or for merging with someone else to make a new person. As we trace the roots that Wooden has struck into the life of the Germanic peoples, we find him turning up in the most unexpected places. He merged into the legend of a great king who has never died, but now sleeps inside a mountain while the ravens fly about outside. A king who will wake up someday and where his nation needs his help to fight off the enemy. But of most interest, however, in the fact that Wooden had become Santa Claus by merging in the legend of his Catholic saint. Who was St. Nicholas? He lived during the reigns of the Roman emperors Diocletian, Maximilian, Constantine, late in the 3rd century and into the 4th. When he was still a young man, Nicholas was consecrated Archbishop of Myra, a seaport town. He died on December 6th. This is his feast day. Varied and numerous legends gathered about his life on earth and his life as a saint after his death. Hallelujah. So, hope that you're getting something out of it, out of what I brought. But I do want to read this passage from the Lord, or from the scriptures, from the scriptures of the Most High God, from the writings. In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12. Chapter 12, verse 13 and 14. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, with whether it is good or whether it is evil. Hallelujah. So keep the laws of God. God will bring everything into judgment. These holidays are pagan. The celebration of them are pagan. We shouldn't have our children involved in these things. These are things that will cause us to err before the creator of heaven and earth. That will cause the creator of heaven and earth to step aside from us if we take part of these celebrations. I know during this time is rough. Everybody is going to be Merry Christmas and you to death. But, that comes with the territory. You're not going to stand there and argue with everybody about why you don't celebrate Christmas, especially with perfect strangers. Your family members should know that you don't celebrate Christmas and not to expect you at their homes during Christmas. It's not the time when we go gather around by family and partake of the Yuletide meal and the Saturnalia meal, because remember, all these things are locked in. And think because you say a prayer to the Most High that everything is going to be well with you. Let's respect God. Let's respect what the Most High is all about and what He has given us. And when we have understanding, sometimes we have to stand down and be strong to make points and not succumb to, Christmas parties at your job, which they disguise by calling holiday parties now. And stand strong. Be that force. Be that light in the midst of the people when there is no light, so that people will respect what you are. Most of the people that I associate with at my job and stuff like that, they already know they're not going to wish me a Merry Christmas. They're not going to buy me Christmas presents. They know I'm not coming to the holiday party because I've been doing this for years. We have to be resolved and strong in the things that we know are right, so that we don't send a mixed message to people or confuse people. You understand what I'm saying? So keeping those things in mind, I thank the Most High God for knowledge, wisdom and understanding that He's given me. I hope that everybody has gotten something out of this. I do this. And I try to just edify people and bring understanding to people. Sometimes it's rough because people don't, sometimes people they just not into trying to get understanding. And I don't get it, but I get it. Every man has their own choice. Everybody has their own road that they have to take. But just to keep things in perspective, we have to fear this great King, keep His commandments, keep His laws, statutes, and ordinances. So, like I said, hope everybody got something out of this. Shabbat Shalom to Havardia, to Bathsheba Yisrael, Deborah B. Who that is one, Marshall Reed, Ozzy Lewy, Benjamin Moshe Ben Yisrael. Gavera Casquilla. See who else is in the. ¿Quién más está sintonizado? Jonah Ben Yisrael. Believe I seen Shavania Bat Yisrael here also. Servant of Yehovah. I hope you're still on, my brother, servant of Yehovah. If you're still on, give me a 1. I'm not sure if you're still on. Hebrew woman 2, the board B, servant of Yehovah. If you're still on, just give me a 1 in the room. I just want everybody. If this brother's still on, I just want everybody to check him out. To check him out. Benjamin Moshe Ben Yisrael. I'm concerned that some of my family keep on celebrating Christmas, and when Yah returns, some of my family is going to be doomed and not make it to the promised land and the holy mountain of Yah. There's a part in the Tanakh, I believe, that says 2 from a family and 1 from a city. Unfortunately, everybody's not going to make it. Some of our children are not going to make it. So that's the unfortunate things. We love our people, but everybody doesn't make it in this way back. Everybody didn't make it out of Egypt. So unfortunately, I'm not going to sell you a fairy tale. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. Yah bless you and your family also, Bashe. But yeah, but that brother, servant of Yah, check him out. Check him out on online. He has some good stuff. He put up a good video last week about the oneness of Yah, and I think that that's very important. We need more and more brothers like that speak about the oneness of Yah. And he's he did a good job. I was impressed by what the brother did, and I want everybody to give him a shot. Servant of Yah, he's right here in the chat with us. He was in the chat with us. He probably left out. Probably just came to support, give us a shout, and then and he left. So just give him a try. He does videos. I would like to collaborate with him. Some things, like I said, I want to do some hangouts with people. Google Hangouts are easy if you got a computer or laptop. You basically on with me, and when you speak, you will show up on the screen. When I speak, I'll show up on the screen. And it's more interactive, you know. Like I said, we'll come up with a topic and we'll discuss it at length and try to just build. You know, so once again, Toda Yah for this opportunity, for this time, for this season. Hoping and pray that the Most High God be with you all, that Yehovah protect you all, that Yehovah continue to be with you and guide you, keep you, protects your thoughts, your endeavors, your mind, and everything that's dear to you. So at this time, I'm going to end and Toda Yah for all things and everything. And let me first try to make this screen smaller as I couldn't stop my streamer. Thank you the Most High God for all things and everything once again. Shabbat Shalom Aleichem, and I will see y'all in the morning. Hallelujah.